name is Sheridan Ruth, and I am here to welcome you home. This is the Exposed podcast. Where we reveal the body-based ways to ease anxiety, heal trauma, and create an empowered connection with love and money using nervous system regulation and a healthy dose of self-compassion. Hello. Oh, you are going to love today's episode. We have an amazing guest. We are discussing treatment-resistant anxiety and EFT tapping with Noemi, who is a certified clinical EFT practitioner, life experience guide, and Ganja yoga specialized instructor. She teaches relaxation-based yoga and evidence-based energetic therapy from her home in Grass Valley, California, USA. Noemi specializes in helping people overcome the side effects and symptoms of living with mental illness through emotional freedom technique. You'll learn about it in the show. Movement and energy mastery. Her broader work focuses on helping people master their energy and regulate their emotions. She also provides psycholytic integration support for people receiving at-home ketamine treatments. My love, if you are experiencing treatment-resistant anxiety and you desire to feel resilient and regulated for good before we get into this amazing episode, I would like to invite you to come on to www.sheridanruth.com/expansion and book your free 30-minute coaching call. In your expansion call, you will receive free support around your unique situation, and we'll also explore whether or not working through my ease framework is the best fit for you right now. You will find the link in the show notes. Go ahead, hit pause, book your call, and then come back and let's get right into it. Good morning, evening, this afternoon. I'm not sure what time it is, listener, when you're listening. For Noemi and I, it is afternoon. So good afternoon, Noemi. Welcome to Exposed. I'm so excited to have you on. You and I just discovered that we have blood in common. How exciting. Do you want to give the listeners a super quick introduction to who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sheridan, for having me. It's such a joy to get to connect with you. We have a lot of similar backgrounds, similar experiences here, and I'm so glad to get to touch on a little bit of that together. So my background, I am a clinical EFT practitioner. I've been working with people who have treatment-resistant anxiety for about 2 years now, and I got into this space because I also dealt with anxiety, and I didn't really understand it until I actually became a professional in the field. Because there's so much we just don't understand about energy yet. So right now I get to be in a space that's really between the woo and the science, where we are bringing in these understandings of energy, how we as humans function as physical and energetic beings, and how to create a more spiritual way of understanding our connection to our deeper selves.
Yeah, it's so awesome because I think you and I met back before I was working with people who I think it's the same, have treatment-resistant anxiety. A lot of my clients have had anxiety for a long time, and there's nothing that really gives them the ease that they want. And then we start working together. But you and I met each other when I was still working solely as just a more general yoga therapist and helping people with hair loss. And when you and I met, you were still working more as a yoga teacher, a little bit of EFT, but you hadn't done the training that you have now. You didn't have the experience that you have now. And then so that I was really curious. I was oh, that's really interesting. Lovely. Noemi seems really cool, etc. And then, I love you, but I forgot about you. As we do, we become self-absorbed, normal. And then I joined your tapping circle a couple of weeks ago, I joined for one little thing. And when I joined, I was a bit hesitant because I thought, one, I had done tapping, and like, Noemi, you'll explain what that is for our listeners who are like, what are you talking about, Sheridan? I had done tapping before, and I was like, seems cool, but not really my thing. Not really my thing. And then I just saw a post of yours, and I was like, you know what? I'll just give it a go. I'll just give it a go with Noemi because she seems to know what she's talking about. So I'll just give it a go. And when I was doing the class, I was like, oh, I kind of just like, to be honest, I was like, I'll just go because if I don't, like, that would not be good. Like, I made this commitment to myself, so I'll show up. And the reason I was feeling that way was because I thought I would be alone at home, and I was living with my parents-in-laws, and I thought I would be alone, and then I wasn't going to be alone. So I was like, oh, there are people around, like, it's not going to work. So I go, and like 10 minutes in, my whole entire state shifted. And then I was like, yeah, she's onto something. So that little thing that she's onto, we're going to be speaking about today. And I'm really, really excited. I think this is something that we can add to our toolbox to help us become more resilient individuals. So I think it would be really helpful. Noemi, you talk a lot about, you just mentioned it, energy. Can you explain to our wonderful listeners what is energy and why do we need to care about it?
Yeah, so great question, especially now because energy is kind of a buzzword. We hear it all the time, and it refers honestly to everything. Everything is energy, whether that's a physical table, a hard physical object, or the subtle feeling when you step into a room and you know someone's been talking about something. That's all energy. All of that, anything we feel physically in our minds, in our bodies, that is all energy. And when it comes to this kind of energy work that we as people who have dealt with or maybe are dealing with anxiety, think about energy the way that I want you to think about it really is as emotion in your body here. So there are, when I work with people who are dealing with anxiety, what I always invite them to do is to think about the sensations in their body right now. Sometimes we can't feel it right now, so I invite people to just think about it. And even that thinking about it, that creates an energy that somehow then manifests in the body. So as soon as we have a thought, as soon as we have an anxious thought, an insecure thought, a thought of jealousy, of rage, right away our body creates a chemical to match that emotion, and that is energy. So in the wild, back in the day, we would have felt these feelings of stress, of some kind of energy in the body when we felt that we were at risk or in danger in some way. And we got that fight or flight. That another thing that we hear a lot about, that feeling in the body when we have some kind of challenge that we need to address. So back in the day, we would have either ran away from the threat or maybe fought the threat or in some way put ourselves into a situation that we either fight it or get away from it. So we either are safe or put ourselves in another situation, another energy. So nowadays, when we don't have that kind of real threat anymore, we're now out, not necessarily out hunting or trying to protect ourselves day to day. What ends up happening is we end up holding on to that energy instead. So for example, you have you see something on social media, it's a threatening thought, it's something that doesn't make you feel comfortable in some way, it instigates some feeling in the body. So right away, that feeling is something that you can use to either get out of fight or flight or to hold on to it, to hold on to that in the body. So sometimes that is helpful if we're planning or creating something new in the future. But right then in the moment, if we see something on social media and our body responds in a stress way or creates stress chemicals in the body, that's when we need to release it, or it turns into stored energy or unresolved energy, which is anxiety.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's really helpful to think about your day-to-day interactions with the world and your anxiety and energy and your nervous system and energy, because something like I asked my clients is that we can do two things with energy. We can have so much energy in the system that it actually makes our system collapse and freeze. And that's where we get to like that numb, I can't really feel anything, or I feel really depressed. Or we can just keep that energy kind of like it's like ping pong ball bouncing around us, and we're like, oh, I just feel really like on edge and anxious. And
Mhm.
so when we understand the energy in our body, what it feels like, moving out of it is really simple. It's one or two questions. The first question, if I feel lots of like, oh, I'm really like moving around a lot, there's a lot of energy, is like, what do I need to calm myself down?
Mhm.
And then if we're in that place where you're freezing and you're numb, the question is, what do I need to actually activate some energy in my system?
Mhm.
Because it's gone into overdrive, that it's like put the brakes on and said stop.
Mhm.
So well, what do I need to put the accelerator on to bring me back to a nice rolling drive?
Mhm.
And I really like the way that you speak about it in that way, because it brings so much more empowerment to it. It's not about learning the perfect tool or understanding the fancy words or all of these things. I don't need to do a PhD. I just need to understand what's happening in my body and how to get it to where I want. So you tell me if I'm wrong. I'm kind of making an assumption here. You began understanding that you were experiencing anxiety. You entered the yoga world. Then you found AFT and you found out that that was more effective. And now you're working more with AFT. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, basically. So I got into yoga because I needed some way to just start moving my body again. So I had been working in tech for a while and I just decided I needed to go back to movement. And there was a yoga studio close to my office, so I decided to try that. And there were times where I really found myself again. I really was able to just calm down and be super present on my yoga mat with a joint in my hand. To be honest, like Ganja yoga was the reason I felt I was able to connect myself more into that present moment. And so I started doing that more and more often, eventually got my yoga teacher training done, my 200-hour. But I noticed that I was still waking up and falling asleep anxious. So I could calm myself
Mm.
in the moment. I could get on my mat, I could do my flow and then find calm eventually, but I was still waking up with it. And so that led me to looking for more tools outside of just yoga and my own psychedelic work. So what I guess the way that I would say that tapping really changed everything for me is when I started tapping with a professional one-on-one, another practitioner. I stopped waking up with anxiety. I realized that I
Yeah.
was actually able to release it from my body, that there was this tangible energy there at some point in my body. And I can give you some examples of what that looked like for me. But then I did not feel that anymore. So I physically was able to release anxiety from my body. And that's what changed everything for me. I realized that this feeling, that jitteriness or that energy, that anxiety in my body is something that I can release. And it's not just a state of being.
Yeah. Amazing. I'm going to bookmark that, the signs. Can you explain before we go further, what is tapping?
Yeah, so EFT or emotional freedom techniques are 48 different clinical techniques that help to regulate the nervous system, release energy, and reset our bodies. And so the main one that we see, the most popular one, is called tapping. And sometimes people just call that EFT or EFT tapping or just tapping by itself. And what that involves is physically tapping on our body on very specific meridian points that have been shown to hold energy. These points have been used for over 5,000 years in traditional Chinese medicine. And so these points, we know and can measure that they hold on to energy in a way that other points on the body don't. So while we're tapping on these points and really feeling into that energy in the body right there in the moment, that's how we can actually feel it and let it go. So when people talk about letting it go, oh, just let it go. It's not just some like floof thing of just like, okay, just think something. It's a physical expression of releasing energy from the body. So that's what tapping helps to do. It helps to release that energy from the body in a series of different techniques. And the most popular ones is tapping that you see most often.
Yeah, I love that. I always like to think of the meridians, or I use, because I come from more of a uh less Chinese medicine, more like Ayurvedic, yogi,
Mm-hmm.
Hindu space. So I work more with like nadis
Mm-hmm.
and things like that, and vayus, all of these fancy words, right? That just tell us how energy runs through the body. So it's like you're a big river, and you have all of these little veins, like just like your blood vessels have veins and we have places where blood runs through the body. we have places in your energetic body that are basically the veins of your energetic body. And so if you have an artery that the end, like the blood is running through and it's getting stuck, and therefore having all of these symptoms, basically what you're saying is that we're just going to kind of disrupt or massage or like help that artery move the stuff that's inside. But we're just doing it with energy and not our blood.
Yeah,
In yoga,
exactly.
we actually do it with our blood and our energy.
That's exactly it, is that it does
Yeah.
actually help circulation and our lymph system. So there's so much more than just the thoughts, the energy of it in our minds. It's a physical release of energy too.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. So that's for all of you. Like, I think I attract a lot of thinkers because I'm such a thinker and I'm such a nerd with this stuff. So that's for all of your minds. Now that we have the mind on board a little bit more, can you tell us more about what the symptoms were for you that you started realizing, oh, there's something else here that needs to be addressed?
Yeah. So for me, first I think what I noticed was insomnia, what I called then at the time insomnia, that I just couldn't sleep. And we thought that that was a condition on its own. Turns out it was just a symptom of a further stickiness of energy, or a stuckness of energy that I was holding on to. So that was the first symptom, is I just couldn't sleep. The next one after that was actually dissociating. And this is super common. Like a lot of us do this. Like we just, go on our phone or think about something else while our bodies feel uncomfortable. Like, oh, we're feeling uncomfortable, I'm going to go do the thing that helps me soothe. And maybe that's scrolling or just doing something that disconnects us from our body. So I did that all the time. For me, that was like a video game.
Is one.
What was that?
Thinking is one. Overthinking, ruminating takes you out of your body. It's a way of dissociating. Everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, anytime when we're not in the body, that's when we can be dissociating. And so that was something that showed up for me too. I really wasn't in my body, and I didn't notice these aches and pains until I was like, okay, now I need to go get a massage or something like that. But it would always come back because I was the one or the energy was coming from within me. So my symptoms were physical pain. One, for example, and this is a great story because this actually shows how I was able to release some energy with EFT and with a practitioner. So what happened was I was noticing tension in my right shoulder, and I thought it was because of work. Like I was just doing, a long time in front of my computer, just like sitting with those long hours. And I thought it was just something that I could release a little bit through massage. Did not happen. It kept on coming back. So I ended up working with my own teacher, my one-on-one practitioner. And what I remembered while we were tapping on this feeling, while I was going through the points of just accepting that, okay, this is a feeling in my shoulder. I remembered a time when I was about 14 years old, when I didn't feel safe to say no to a situation, and I tensed my shoulders up. I tensed my shoulders up so much that that's just how they stayed for such a long time, that became my normal, until I started to calm myself down and was able to feel that, oh, this isn't right. So with going into that memory when I was about 14 years old and I didn't feel safe and I accepted that feeling, my shoulder pain went away, and it hasn't been back since.
Yeah, I love that you talk about accepting that feeling. So it's this catch-22 almost, because I definitely, one of the biggest reasons that I work with people one-on-one is because they want to not be experiencing the thing that they're experiencing. And that's a goal, and then we're going to work towards it, absolutely. But in order to get to the other place of not experiencing what they don't want to be experiencing, we need to accept it. Accept it to the point where your body feels safe enough to let it run through you. And this is internal boundary work, this is capacity work, this is using different tools until you find the right one, being held by another practitioner so that your body feels safe, like I'm not all alone, I'm okay, I'm being regulated through somebody else. But it's so important to accept the feeling so that it can be moved. Yeah,
absolutely. You have to feel it to heal it, otherwise it'll never go away.
Yeah. And you can only heal what you can be aware of. So you have to come back into the body, be aware of it, and then move forward with that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another reason why I love EFT so much is it's so gentle. Like it brought me back into that moment when I was 14 or so, but it wasn't uncomfortable because by then my system was regulated. I was already in a calm state, not in that fight or flight, rather than the rest and digest. And I could re-experience that memory without the emotional intensity of it. And that's what relieves it.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Mhm.
Something that you and I have spoken about a lot, or a little bit, or we're both on journeys of, is using these tools not only to release anxiety, that's really wonderful and really, really beautiful, but to be able to be more in contact with your true innate nature, your authentic self. How, what's that journey been like for you? Big question. What's that journey been like for you?
I would say it gets easier and easier, but also realizing that there's still so much more to do the more I do it. So this process of connecting back with myself, this rekindling of what was there, what made me feel alive and good when I was young before the world got in the way, that is a slow, slow unfolding process that really takes place when I can rest. So as I can tap and I can release old energy that isn't mine anymore, then I can really come into the state of like, okay, now I'm here, I'm present in this moment, I'm not doing, I can just be. And that's when I can really see, okay, who am I? Who am I right now? What is this energy here that fills my cup? What makes me feel good? What makes me feel inspired to go do something? Because yeah, it's one thing in this world to do everything by ourselves, like, oh, I don't need anyone, but that can also be a trauma response too. Like as
Mm-hmm.
humans, we need community. We don't want to be doing everything by ourselves. And sure, we can find ourselves on our yoga mat alone, or we can do that with community and then really feel the amplification of who we are when we see ourselves reflected in each other's eyes.
Yeah, that feeling of like I'm gonna go do this by myself is such a, yes, it's valuable, and yeah, we want to be independent, but we also want to be interdependent,
Yes.
and we need to be okay with both. Sometimes I notice that people come to this work and they're really upset that they can't do it by themselves straight away,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and I don't know. What do you think about that? What happens when that happens? What do you say when that happens?
So I don't see that too much where people are saying that they'd rather be doing this by themselves. Because at this point, by the time they come to me, since they've been treatment resistant, right? So they've been trying stuff and nothing's working. By then, they want someone to hold their hand, and
Mm,
it's been really nice to get to hold their hand and also then bring them into community, because this isn't a relationship with me. This is a relationship with them and their authentic self. And the best way to really ground into that feeling is to be that version of yourself around others who are ready and willing to see you in that place.
yeah. Because that's just like that's that embodied sense of safety and healing, and oh, I'm seen and I'm accepted the way that I am without trying to be something else.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so interesting though, because I have a lot of people that come to me who feel almost like shame. They're like, oh, I
Mhm.
should be able to figure this out by myself. I wish
Mhm.
that I could do that by myself because it would make me like a better person, or there's like some deep story down within. They're like, oh, I shouldn't need support for this type of thing. Like I
Mhm.
should be able to, and or I should be able to just like watch a video and then like totally get it. And I think it's always helpful to remind people that you can use other people's, it's another person's nervous system essentially,
Mhm.
right? When we go to a yoga class, we sit in a circle, we're borrowing the energy
Mhm.
or the heartbeat and the regulation of another individual to help our body say, oh, and your body is literally being like, if they're relaxed and calm, I can also be relaxed and calm. If they're doing it, it's also safe for me to do it. Such a tribal thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, co-regulating with a teacher is such a sacred space. Like teachers really show up and their container is their nervous system. So
Yeah.
when we can sit down with them and feel safe, then anything else can happen from there on.
Yeah. Their container is their nervous system. I think, yes. Yes. Just by the way, guys, if you want to be a good coach, be regulated. So I have so many things that I'm like curious about. I want to ask you. You talk a lot about rest.
Mm-hmm.
What else helps you rest? To the beautifully anxious person who's listening to this podcast because she can't rest and she's doing the dishes, what advice would you give her?
Tapping is rest too. So rest isn't just when we're sitting down, closing our eyes, not doing anything. Rest is when we are feeling calm. And by doing these tools that we know and have scientifically been proven now time and again that help to relax our nervous system, that is rest. So take it wherever you can, snatch it. This is not something that people are going to come and give to you. This is especially in capitalism and this productivity culture that we have, this grind culture. Rest isn't given out. It is a luxury. So we need to learn to take it for ourselves in those moments that we can anytime. So even if it is just during the dishes, if you're just sitting down and just doing the dishes, that is rest.
Yeah, and like breathing deep while you do the dishes, smiling while you're pulling your shoulders back.
Yeah, relaxing the tongue. Exactly. Just relaxing the body while you're doing it. That is rest too.
Yeah, like pulling your tongue down from the top of your mouth. Yeah, totally. What do you, what is, you kind of have this symptom, right? Like this is where I began my journey. This is a symptom that I needed more energy. What are your quote unquote symptoms of being connected with your true self?
I sleep really well. Yeah. Every morning, every night, I think about how much I love my life. And I notice those thoughts more and more. And this has been also a slow unfolding process, but me noticing that I'm enjoying the day or just like how beautiful the sky is. I definitely did not have those thoughts before the pandemic. I did not have, at least not nearly as many of those, just, okay, I'm just sitting here for a moment and I don't need to look at my phone. This is me here right now. I don't need to keep working. And also as someone who works with others, I don't need to serve right now. And that's been a beautiful one to get to embody of like, I've done enough. I can receive now.
Yeah. Can you speak more to that? Because I think that there are a lot of women in particular who have this, it's almost like we think that we made an agreement with the world that we just need to help everyone. And we need to be doing things for other people and our partner and like helping them have a good life and helping our sister. Or if we end up in jobs where we do serve, and turning that around is a really essential practice. What has that looked like for you? What has been helpful?
Yeah. So the main understanding that's changed everything for me is understanding that how we show up depends on our programming before the age of 6. So until we're about 6 or 7 or so, our brainwaves are constantly learning. We are always absorbing everything that's happening around us. We are only able to produce these delta and theta waves where everything is just true. So until then, we are absorbing what we see from our primary caretakers, how they take care of themselves, especially. And unless we saw someone who could take care of themselves, enjoy it, and also make money, we are probably not able to just do that on our own. We don't have the programming because we didn't see someone else doing it ahead of us. And as women, most of the time, our mothers were serving other people, or they were serving children, or they were just doing something where they weren't serving themselves. And that is our subconscious programming. But now that we understand these things more and more, that like, that's not just the way that it is, that's just the way that I've seen it to be. We can learn to look in directions where people are doing that well. This is why coaching is such a really important movement right now. These peer-to-peer relationships where we are holding each other's hands and setting new patterns, new ways of being. This is what helps us change our old programming.
Before we wrap this episode up, I'm going to take a few minutes to share with you an invitation that will support you in taking this work deeper. There could be various reasons why you're here listening today. Perhaps you are a client, a friend, or a colleague. Maybe we just found each other, or maybe we've known each other for a while. What I know to be true is that you're likely here because you're ready to develop the tools to bounce back from the difficulties of life quickly and with more ease by having the tools to regulate your nervous system and find inner peace instead of inner conflict for good. You know that you are ready to say goodbye to the nagger inner critic voice telling you how you should be or getting stuck in the endless what ifs of anxiety. You're ready to know how to set boundaries with your loved ones in a way that increases the love, trust, and connection and doesn't just feel like isolating walls. And you are ready to finally increase your resilience and your body's ability to feel more in control of your big emotions without trying to manipulate them so that you can find your innate wisdom. You're ready to finally celebrate the growth of your relationship or your business without experiencing shame and guilt, even though you're experiencing quicker success than those around you. I support all of my clients in this through a framework of nervous system regulation, emotional alchemy, and self-trust cultivation. And this podcast is just the tip of the iceberg. This is why I'm extending an invitation for you to book a free expansion call, where on this call, we will dive even deeper into exactly what you need to go from feeling overwhelmed, managing big emotions, and falling into anxiety or depression as a result, to having the tools to regulate them quickly and with ease. In this free 30-minute call, you will receive free coaching and support around your unique personal situation. And we will explore whether or not coaching is going to be the best fit for you at this time. Some of the results that clients have achieved after just their expansion call are deep acceptance of their differences, so much that when they share their story now, they attribute most of their self-acceptance to this one 30-minute call, or signing a client right after the call because they leaned into the embodiment work, or feeling deeply seen and understood so much that now when they go to ask their partner for a hug, they no longer feel needy when they're doing it and they get the hug. Or switching one habit that they had when communicating with their partner for another and witnessing more harmony and peace in the relationship instead of resentment and nitpicking. And you deserve this too. So you will find the link in the podcast notes to lock your free call in ASAP. When you book this call, you can expect to walk away with clear, tangible ideas on how to apply this work to your life, and you'll decide if you would like to work with me one-on-one in the process of becoming more resilient and regulated. Yeah, I was just on a client call today and we were talking about relationships, and she was like, I want this relationship where there's love and teamwork and acceptance, but the only vision I have of relationships is people are miserable. And we're in this unique generation where I don't think that we've seen a lot of empowered relationships, because the relationships between men and women have been out of equality, so they're not empowered. Mm-hmm. And then there's all of this divorce, and then there's this overwork, and like we're not, as a society, we haven't come to this balance. I mean, we still haven't, but I think we're getting closer every day. And so what I have really become to realize is that we need to see the specifics. We need to see how people respond to different scenarios, and we need to have it modeled in front of us. We need to see them say specific sentences, because there are certain sentences that we didn't even know you could say. We're like, what? That's an option? Nobody told me about that. I definitely had that as well. I was like, whoa, you can do that? I didn't even know that you could say that to a person and that would be okay. What? And I think what you're saying is important. The people we have that can show us that a lot of the time at the moment are coaches.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, absolutely. There's some better media out there now. I would just want to shout out Hollywood's doing a better job than they used to. Great. But yeah, in our lives, we really don't see that too much. And a lot of this is trailblazing for ourselves, of figuring out how to say that. So it's so important to either be in a relationship where we can try those things out, or to be in a community where we can try that out and know that no matter what is said, this is just a game. We're just practicing how to be our highest selves and how to express what we need without there being a fear of judgment.
Yeah. Yeah, I have goosebumps when you say that. I really, really do. I really, really do. And what do you mean? For our listeners, they're going to be like, what do you mean, Noemi? A game? This feels so real and very urgent and important to me. What do you
Yeah.
mean?
I mean that every day we get to try again, that there's nothing set in stone. It's all just set in our energetic field. So those little moments that made us feel that we weren't safe to express our needs or to do whatever we actually wanted to, we hold on to those in our bodies. But when we can learn to release them, then we can keep coming back to what we want to try day to day, to keep showing up as our highest self. Because there's not just one, it's not just a static place or a static being one where our highest self, like that's just it. No. Especially as women, that is continually changing. That is a dynamic process. As women who have, changing hormones throughout the month, like our energy is always going to be different too. So our highest self is always different. And so that means that we get to try it on day to day. And when we don't take it as seriously, when we see it as more of a game, as more of a dance, where the process is just the movement itself rather than the result, then we can have a little bit more fun with it. Then we can see it more as that game that where there's nothing to lose.
Yeah. Yeah. It's taking that inner perfectionist or that inner good girl out of the driver's
Mm-hmm.
seat and saying,
Yes.
hey, whatever it is that happens, I will bounce back from it.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. It's really forgiving the self of like, yeah, that didn't feel like me, and tomorrow I'm going to try it again.
Yeah, it's feedback. And I think it's essential for us to have those moments where we're like, yeah, not my best, not really in love with that, because it tells us what we actually want.
Exactly. Contrast is such an important tool to know what we do want. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
always a
yeah.
gift. Mm-hmm.
I have a question that
Yeah.
people keep asking me, and I have been a little bit lazy with responding it. So I'm just gonna ask you.
Yeah.
um, maybe you and I haven't spoken about this, so maybe it's like totally not even applicable, but you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, you work for yourself. How do you manage, if you manage at all, your business and your tasks and your to-dos around your hormones and your period?
Mm, I definitely give myself permission to do less when I'm in my last 2 weeks, and when I'm in my luteal phase. That is definitely time where I will teach a slower class, where maybe I won't create anything that week, or if I can, I'll delegate it to someone else. I also, with my clients, I always make it a point at the beginning to let them know that if they are ever on their cycle and they don't want to have our session that day, even if it's right before, I will always forgive that, because I totally get it. That is always
Yeah.
okay to take care of yourself instead of showing up for a session. As a business owner, it's been um, it's still something I'm figuring out, because in the way that our system is made, it's a very, very masculine, very patriarchal system where it's always the same energy day to day. And with our cycles being different, more of like that 28 to 32, 34 day cycle, however long yours is, that I think in our moving forward as entrepreneurs, what that would look like for us is really giving us more space between activities and more time to rest when our body isn't feeling like showing up and creating.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's no real like sorry, there's just real so there's no real model yet for this, but I do see some coaches doing like A-B weeks where it's a little bit more flexible. I mean, ideally there would probably like A, B, C, and D weeks, all different a little bit, but then that's a lot of moving pieces too. So I think the main thing right now is just finding that practice of self-forgiveness, of figuring out, okay, this is what I can do right now, and if I'm not capable of it right now, that's fine.
Yeah. It's such a practice of self-compassion. It's
Mhm.
unapologetic and it's almost radical. I personally never ever coach when I'm on my period, and I try not to be on my phone. I just make it like me time. And ever since I started doing that, holy moly, my energy levels are insane for the next 2 weeks. Like you get
Mhm.
so much done.
Yes,
It's
that rest really refills our cup. Like it's so different getting into the week knowing like, yeah, I rested last week.
Yeah. And it's also about, I think, trusting yourself and trusting your energy and being like, you know what? I trust that I'm going to get that done next week.
Yep. Exactly. That self-trust, that's a big thing that people can benefit from tapping on. That idea and that feeling in the body of trusting ourselves, that is definitely energy that can be such a blockage sometimes.
Yeah. And so you like, when you say tapping on it,
Mhm.
when I find energy of self-trust, I like guide my clients to expand on it, to meditate on it, to feel more of it, to get to know more of it. Do you tap on it like in that same way? Give me more.
So I would there, if someone was coming to me saying like, I just don't trust myself, I would ask them where they feel that feeling in your body, ask them to rate that on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the most intense. And then we just focus on that feeling, that energetic block in the body. And once we find the reverse of that or the more positive of that, then we can anchor that feeling in and let that grow. But until there's negative energy there, or any kind of anything that's not flowing, that's stuck, that's when we tap on that. So that's really just, okay, this is how I'm feeling and I accept myself.
Yeah, love it. Okay, amazing. Oh, I love self-trust. So, beautiful listeners, Noemi, what is their next step? Like, where can they find you? What do you want to invite them to? How do they take, now that they have the information, what do they need to do next?
So if you're hearing this and you're like, okay, I have this thing that I need to work through, I highly recommend coming to my group tapping sessions. Just try it out first, get a vibe, see what it feels like, and notice how that 20, 30 minutes of just tapping on yourself can already give you that energetic release that a lot of other classes and maybe other on-demand courses are trying to sell you. This is not a faith-based practice. Tapping on yourself and feeling into that feeling in the body while also accepting yourself is what helps us release whatever energy you're holding on to. So the first step is to come try out tapping with me. I tap on Sundays via Zoom at 9:30 a.m. Pacific. So I'm in the West Coast. And that is just a super casual session. It's a growing group of people. There are about maybe 15 of us occasionally. And we just focus on that Sunday scary feeling, that feeling of anxiety, and release that together.
Yeah.
However, if you're noticing there's more there, if you're like, okay, I've been anxious for a long time and I'm ready to physically maybe learn to shift this, then come work with me one-on-one. I highly, highly recommend everyone do this at some point. But if you're feeling like, you want to try it in a group first, do that. If you are ready to go one-on-one and to release some deep, deep roots of anxiety, then let's do that together. I want to help you.
Beautiful. And I can definitely personally recommend it. But that you do a different theme each week sometimes, depending on like what's going on for everyone. So when we tapped, we worked on physical pain. And I didn't really have any, but I had like a little bit of discomfort. And by the end, it was like not there at all. So that was really, really cool. And one person had like an 8 pain on a scale of 1 to 10 and got down to like a 2 or a 3 halfway through. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, I can definitely attest that most of the time when people are coming in with high numbers, they go down pretty quickly, because just being together and tapping together also creates that safety zone, that area where we can get out of that fight or flight. And that already just makes the numbers go down so much easier than doing it by yourself.
Yeah, so cool. So everyone, I will leave those links below. Noemi, thank you for being on with us. It's really, really lovely to talk and learn a little bit more about your story, and yeah, how EFT can support people. So wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheridan, so much for the time, for the opportunity to chat with your lovely people. We need more energy, love in our lives, and to understand more that we can change how we feel at any point. We are in control. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to chat a little bit.
A big and special thanks to Upturned for composing this magical piece of music, and to GS Studios for mixing it. To find Upturned's other tracks or ask for your own special custom piece of music, go say hello using their contact details in the show notes.